Hello and welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If you're new here, my name is Elena and I am the homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos. Here on the channel we talk about everything from homeschooling to homemaking and all the things in between. Today for us is a Saturday and it's kind of an overcast but warm day. So my boys are outside doing some lawn work and I am inside trying to get this kitchen prep and cleaned up and all that fun stuff. The way that we do our grocery, or we attempt to do our grocery, is that we do a monthly grocery shopping. Once a month I go in and do the majority of our grocery shopping, and then I try not to go back into the store too frequently the rest of the month. We do have to go in occasionally if we need produce that's not lasted, and then we have those like budget busters weekends where we want something different and I'm just too tired to say no, let's stick to the budget. We're not perfect with the budget, but we keep on trying, right? And then after the monthly grocery shopping, what I will try to do is do a monthly freezer meal prep. So I'll prep a couple of meals for the family to have ready to roll in the freezer, and that just kind of makes some of those nights go a little bit easier for us, especially the busier nights or the nights when you're just tired and can't think of another thing. And so today we're gonna prep, but we're gonna do something a little bit different because sometimes you are not able to find the protein that you want to get when you go in to do the grocery shopping and things like that. Maybe they are out of the particular cut of chicken that you want, or maybe they are low on ground turkey or what have you. This time around I thought I would do some freezer meals that can be used for any kind of protein. So I have a couple of things on the plan for today just to kind of get it prepped and help out, and then I can sub in any kind of protein. So if I happen to have chicken, I can put in chicken with it. If I happen to have ground turkey or another slice of meat, we can put that in. Or you can go vegetarian and do like tofu or something like that. In fact, I'm going to try to prep one that is a meatless meal just to kind of make that budget stretch a little bit more throughout the month. So let's get going because it is already later and I want to start earlier in the day, but, right? I also have some breadcrumbs that are cooling on the back of my oven here. We are trying out a DIY stuffing mix that we can keep in the pantry or the freezer. I'm not going to share all of it today. Maybe if it comes out well, I'll share it in an upcoming video, but I'm leaving it there to cool because like I said, there's a lot of stuff happening in the kitchen today. So I've got my hair tied back. You saw our monthly grocery haul. You saw that for Costco we bought this pack bag. I think I was trying to combine the words. We bought bell peppers there, and then I also bought squash and zucchini, and then I also bought a 10-pound bag of onions. So we're gonna get to washing and dicing. It's the first thing we're gonna do. This is totally off topic, but I just ate one of these spicy kosher dills. They're so good. This is from our Azure haul. So I'll link both those videos in the description below if you haven't seen them, but these are excellent. I'm gonna have to add that to our list for the next haul. And really, I would love to learn how to ferment my own. That would be great. It's on the list of things to do. For now, let's get to slicing and dicing. Okay, the next thing I did was just get some, these are quart-sized bags, freezer bags, and then I just wrote fajita mix on here. I went ahead and diced the onion, and then I'm just gonna put in a handful of bell pepper and onion, and then I have some homemade fajita seasoning mix. You can buy it if you want to. I just had some, I had all the seasonings to whip up a batch. So I did that, and then I'm gonna put it all in here in the bag. So then you're gonna fill your bag up, and then you're gonna sprinkle in some seasoning. Okay, and so these mixes can be used for, you can throw in chicken. So if you happen to get chicken, you can throw chicken in. You can throw red meat in there. You could do just a fajita mix. I don't know if you could do tofu. I've never tried a tofu fajita, but if you had fish, you could do fish fajitas. There's lots of different ways you can go with this, but at least you have the base of it done, and you can sub in whichever protein you happen to find on sale or fits your budget or you have in your freezer for that week. A couple of different ways to cook this is just as fajitas. You can put them with, serve them with tortillas and rice and beans. We've also done like sub sandwiches with this fajita mix. So we've had like a fajita chicken sandwich, just use one of those hoagie rolls and then slice some cheese on it and put some of this onto it, and it works out excellent. Or you can try to make a casserole out of it. As I was putting the bags together, you could serve it up with maybe rice in the casserole dish and maybe some cheese and then your protein of choice and make it a casserole. But lots of different options and just a nice little shortcut to have in your freezer. So let's get on to the next thing. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you two different ways you can do it. The first way is to actually just go ahead and prep it and put it in a casserole dish. We're gonna make some enchiladas. This one I say can be any type of protein because honestly, this is one of my favorite ways to use up leftovers. The other day I had some chicken that I put in the slow cooker and we had a little bit left over. This container is like 4 cups and it's like maybe halfway full. So I got about 2 cups of chicken here, which is not enough to feed my family of 5. We are hearty eaters and that's just not enough to feed us. So one of the favorite ways that I like to stretch my meat and make it last for another meal is to put it in a casserole and add a bunch of other layers and things to it. And one of my favorite casseroles is an enchilada casserole. So in case you don't have any leftovers, so you can prep the entire casserole at one time, I will show you a second way to do it so that you can just have the ingredients prepped. But first let's do the casserole style with leftovers, and then we'll show you the second way. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is just spray the bottom of the pan here. I'm using just this avocado oil spray. I like this one. This is from Costco if you're looking for one because it doesn't have any of the like propellant stuff in it. It is just straight avocado oil. But this is kind of a cheater's version too, so take it as you will. So we're gonna put that in and then we're just gonna start our layering. I have some enchilada sauce that I made here. You can use the canned version if you want to. I have just been typically making it because even the mild cans are too spicy for my kids. Once it kind of goes through the slow process of cooking, it heats it up and it's just too much for some of my younger kids. So I have just started to make our own, and what I'm gonna do is just pour some in. So I'm just gonna spoon some in so that we get it layered on the bottom here. The sauce is not as thick as your typical store-bought sauce, but it'll do. So I'm gonna put a layer down and then I'm just gonna spread it. And for my homemade enchilada sauce, I used tomato paste, but I also used a can of fire roasted tomatoes. So that's what these lumps of tomatoes you're seeing in here are. If you use a can of pre-made enchilada sauce, clearly you won't have those. And then I'm gonna start laying. We're gonna put a layer of corn tortillas down at the bottom. I'm gonna give it another spray because the oil is gonna help the enchilada sauce stick to it. And typically so traditionally you would go ahead and warm up your oil and warm up your enchilada sauce, and you would dunk the tortillas first into the warm oil and then into the warmed sauce. But like I said, it's a cheater version, so we are just taking shortcuts here. And then here's where we're gonna get a little bit of some good veggies snuck in. I'm gonna put one layer of this zucchini that I shredded. I found that if I shred the veggies, it goes down a little bit easier for my kids, especially the younger ones who don't like big giant chunks of veg. So we're gonna put that in. We'll put some of the chicken here. I'm gonna sprinkle some more. I'm gonna do the yellow squash as well. And this is what's gonna kind of beef it up a little bit more, or not beef it up, not protein it up, right? This is what's gonna just make it a little bit thicker and kind of stretch this meat. This is all the cheese that I have right now, so I'm going to lightly sprinkle cheese on this layer, and I'm going to really save the majority for that top layer because this is all I have right now. So this is another way that we're just going to make it stretch. And for this layer, I'm going to take I have some power greens to the side here, and these are the power greens I get from Costco. It comes in a bag like this. It is just baby chard, spinach, and baby kale. And again, it's just a different option to have. You could do it all with the zucchini and squash. Another great way to make it stretch a little bit more is to add some beans in here, and you can make it a vegetarian meal if you wanted to, but just having beans instead of the chicken. Or you could do lentils. A while back ago I did like a lentil kind of taco fake meat, but that would be a great way to have a meatless night meal and kind of make your grocery budget stretch a little bit more. I'm gonna put this in, sprinkle some of this in, and hopefully it is not too big where my littles will pick it out. I'm gonna sprinkle in the chicken again. Okay, and here's what my casserole is looking like. Now, the day of, if I was going to freeze this, I would go ahead and just saran wrap it and then put foil on it and go ahead and let it cool down because my sauce was a little bit warm still, and put this in the freezer, and then it would be ready to roll for a dinner another night. But because we're gonna cook this tomorrow, I'm just gonna go ahead and put foil on it and put it in the fridge, and then dinner is prepped for tomorrow. Let me show you the second way that you can do this though. Okay, it is actually a couple days later, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish up showing you the freezer meals. I ended up taking the rest of the day and just hanging out with the family, but everything is still fresh and can be prepped. So let's finish this off. The next way you could prep that enchilada casserole is just to freeze the components of it. If you didn't have extra leftovers, or if you wanted to make it just kind of a vegetarian one and put in extra veggies, you could do that. So you could take each thing. I just have a baggie here, and then I already know, because I just made this, I already know approximately how many tortillas are gonna fit into my casserole dish. But if you don't know, you can always estimate, and then you can, you know, just not do as many layers, or you could shred it up instead of laying it down flat. I would definitely do the bottom layer flat though, just for portability, like just when you go to slice it and take it out, that bottom one has a nice firm layer. But you would just place your tortillas inside a little Ziploc bag like this and have your tortillas prepped. You would also get like your cheese and put that to the side. Again, if you wanted to make this vegan, you of course would not use dairy cheese. You would find yourself an alternative. If you wanted to add greens in as well, then you can go ahead and place some of those in a Ziploc bag as well. And just put everything in their separate ones, and then just put, like I said, a little kit together. So you would put as many greens as you wanted to put into yours in here. Greens are great, especially when they're frozen, because you can really stuff this down and really fill it up. And then when it's frozen, you can crunch it up because it's frozen, and it'll be in smaller pieces rather than tearing it when it's fresh. So a lot of times I almost prefer to buy the spinach and freeze it, and then I can crunch it up when it is done. So I've just taken the air out of this, and then it'll freeze like this, and then when it is frozen, I can smush it up and break it into even smaller pieces, and it's really easy. And a lot more times it's harder for the kids to pick out that way. So you can put that together. And if you have frozen veggies, like earlier, I went ahead and shredded up the zucchini and the yellow squash. You could also put that in baggies and put it in there, or mushrooms would be great, black olives, beans. Like I said, I mean, you could think of a lot of different ways to do this to make sure you keep it all together. Now, this is a lot of Ziploc bags, so some of these can be reused if you wanted to. So then you can put it all in here, and then if you have enchilada sauce that you made, you could also freeze that and toss that in, or you could just set one aside, a can in your pantry, and either mark it down for a freezer meal up on top of the can so you know not to use it, or if you can just keep track of that, then you can just keep track of that. But that is another way to go ahead and prep the meal. And then If you wanted to leave it, like I said, just vegetarian and not add any meat, you could do that. Or if you had leftovers like we did, the little bit of that chicken that wasn't quite enough, but I wanted to stretch it, you could always pop this out and stretch your leftovers that way. Whichever way you wanted to do it, you just have this on hand and you can stretch your budget that way too. For this next recipe, we're actually going to prepare a meal that doesn't use any meat type protein. We're just going to use lentils and mushrooms and make some hamburger patties. I have made these before and they are really tasty, probably because they have a lot of herbs and things that you're adding to the mix there, a lot of seasonings. We like to prep them either just in regular old hamburger buns and serve them up just as hamburgers or cheeseburgers, or another way to serve them up is in a flour tortilla and kind of make a cheeseburger quesadilla out of them. Either way, they're really tasty and it's a little bit lighter on the budget because, like I said, you're using lentils and mushrooms as your main ingredients, which can be a little less costly than like ground beef or something like that. To begin, you can either use chia seeds or flaxseed to kind of make a substitute for an egg. So I have a flaxseed on hand here and I'm gonna mix that in. In my bowl, I just have about 3 tablespoons of warm water, and then I'm gonna put in 2 teaspoons of flaxseed here. Give it a stir and set it to the side while I get the rest of the ingredients going. And then I have some mushrooms in here. I did wipe them down. These are just white mushrooms. That's what was on sale, and so that's what I got. I think you can really use any kind of mushroom. I will link the exact recipe below for you, but we're just gonna pulse this and kind of take the easy route to mince it because we're gonna come back and use this food processor later, so that way we're not dirtying a bunch of dishes. Minced mushrooms. So in my pan, I just have some onions getting warmed up here. I'm also gonna add in some garlic. If you've seen, I usually don't measure garlic. I just kind of keep going. And then I weigh afterwards if we're doing macros, but we're gonna put in a little garlic there. I'm gonna let this brown up, and then we're also gonna add in the mushrooms. And I have done this recipe where I actually skipped this step. This is just gonna add another layer of flavoring to it. So if you have time, do it. If you don't, it won't make that painful of a process if you skip it. So we're just gonna let this kind of melt together for a little bit, and then we'll get the rest of it going. Okay, so next we're gonna go ahead and add in our lentils. This is probably over, the recipe calls for 2 cups. This is a little bit more than that of what it came out to, but we're gonna play by ear and see how it goes. I'm gonna go ahead and add in our mushroom, onion, and garlic mix as well. And I'm gonna actually give this a quick spin before we add in the other ingredients. We're gonna add in our flaxseed or egg replacement, tablespoon of tomato paste. Instead of soy sauce, we use this liquid aminos, so a tablespoon of that. A 1/3 cup of oats, oregano, basil, paprika, salt, and thyme. And then we're also gonna add in, I have arrowroot powder. The recipe says cornstarch or potato starch, but I'm guessing it's just, this is just like a more of a binding agent as well, a thickener so that it'll hold together. So I'm gonna use arrowroot powder because that's what we have. And then we're gonna mix this together. And that's it. So you can let this sit to the side to thicken up a little bit more. But it's already holding a really great shape for me, I feel like. So I'm gonna put it to the side while I warm up the oven and put together one last meal here. Okay, this next one is gonna be super simple. There's just a couple of things that I did to prep ahead of time, but you can use canned ingredients to sub in. So here's what I mean. Things that I did ahead of time was I put in a brown rice and quinoa mix. That's just kind of how we eat our brown rice and quinoa. I mix a half and half version. If you've seen any of our videos, other videos, you probably know that's like a favorite of ours here. It looks like this golden color just because I added a little bit of turmeric in it. But basically what I do is just put in equal amounts of brown rice and quinoa and throw it in the rice cooker with double the amount of liquid, and then let the rice cooker do the work. I have some dishes here that are drying, so excuse. So I went ahead and did that ahead of time, but you could easily buy frozen rice that is pre-done, or if you have leftover rice, that would work as well. The other thing that I went ahead and did is from the freezer. I actually already had some cream of mushroom already done, some homemade cream of mushroom, but you could get a can of cream of mushroom or cream of chicken or whatever you wanted to use and do that, or you could make your own too and use that, whichever is easier for you, whichever works for your budget. Recipes that I have seen call for broccoli florets. You could use fresh broccoli, you could use frozen broccoli, because we're gonna throw it back into the freezer anyways to have it for another day. I'm not gonna use broccoli florets. What I did was another day I went ahead and I took some broccoli and broccoli stem, and this is a good way to use up the entire broccoli, is put it into the food processor and I riced it. And so I'm gonna use this because, again, I think this will be a little easier for my kids to eat and not pick out all the broccoli. So we're gonna use this. So I'm just gonna use a bowl to kind of stabilize my bag here. I don't have any of those like fancy bag holders, but this will work just as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in about a couple cups here of my quinoa brown rice mix. So about 2.5, and then this is 240 grams of rice, but this is a quart size bag, so I'm gonna go ahead and dump that in as well. And I really wanted to let that rice cool. Probably could have waited a little bit longer, but hopefully it doesn't thaw out my broccoli rice too much. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put in, I'm gonna use all 3 of these. Each one is about, I think, half a cup. Actually, each one looks like it might be a whole cup of cream of mushroom soup. But when you do this, if you use canned, you would want to use, for about 2.5 cups of rice, you would want to use 2 cans of the cream of whatever soup you want to use. Just depends on how saucy you want it when you go to cook it. You could add your cheese to this right now, but I'm gonna wait till the day of when we cook it, just to kind of save, again, a little bit on cheese. Some of us are going dairy free, and I have a feeling more of us will also be going dairy free. That's the nice thing about being able to make the cream of mushroom soup. It is made with almond milk, and so it's kind of a dairy-free one. And then that's it for this meal. So you could make multiples of this and have them in there. I just didn't, this is just the ingredients that I had on hand, so I just went ahead and made one. I'm gonna throw it into the freezer, but I'm gonna throw it into the freezer just like this, and this will be a kind of broccoli rice casserole. Now to this casserole, what I'm gonna do is the day of, like I said, I'm going to let it defrost in the fridge, and then pour it into my casserole dish. Probably spray the casserole dish first so it doesn't stick, and pour that in. You can either just serve it up that way. You could throw in some chicken and put it in that way. This would be another great meal if you had some like leftover chicken, or even if you purchased a rotisserie chicken and shredded it up, you could throw that in there and that would make it stretch a little bit more too. Another alternative using chicken is drumsticks. I've seen one of my good friends went ahead and made the casserole and just laid drumsticks on top of it and cooked it up that way. You just of course want to make sure your drumsticks are fully cooked all the way. But basically, whatever sounds good to you, go ahead and throw that in there, or like I said, just leave it plain and have just regular old broccoli rice casserole. Okay, these are done and cooled. I just took a spatula and kind of lifted them up to make sure that they were cool all the way, and they are. And so I'm gonna go ahead, it ended up making 10 patties, and they're pretty decent sized patties. You could see that I was like adding more just to make them really big, full-size ones. And so these are going to be really great to have. I was thinking that we could maybe next time try adding some pepper flakes to it to give it a little bit of spice, or jalapenos for my husband and I. But for now, the way that I like to store these The way I store them for the freezer is just putting them in a Ziploc bag here, but I will separate them and put a parchment paper in between, or you can put them into the freezer like this and just give a quick flash freeze individually like that too. And that is it for today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and prepping a couple of meals for the freezer. Like I said, you can do these at multiples, or if you just have enough to do one on hand, that's one extra night of less work you have to do. So every little bit will count. I did go ahead and freeze the rest of the shredded zucchini and squash so that will also help later in the month as I want to just kind of sneak in veggies here or there. Another thing I like to do with those is to put them into when I make my own pasta sauce. So I will do that in a slow cooker. If I have a video on that, I will link it for you. If not, and you want to see how we do that in the slow cooker, let me know in the comments down below and I can get that prepped and out for you. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope that in some way this was helpful to you. If you like this video, would you please be sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know that it was helpful to you, or that it was entertaining at least. It also helps let me know what you're looking for on the channel as far as content. And if you haven't heard today, you are deeply and truly loved and so appreciated. Thanks so much for watching.